Hello everyone, Yana is here. Today we're going to paint a quick sketch of croissants using an artist pen and watercolors. I decided to paint a few croissants and to show you how I manage the colors and the timing of applying tones and shades. So here I just quickly draw a bunch of croissants and it doesn't necessarily need to be in the same order as I sketched them. Feel free to use your own imagination, or you can just simply copy the layout that I created and just proceed like that. So remember how in my paint the realistic blueberry video I mentioned that if you want to draw or paint an object and you are new to art, you need to study it. So I just decided to study more croissants. I love to paint them, and they are so artistic and super cool for painting. So I decided to show you in more details how to draw them and paint them. How to apply shades and tones by using just a few colors. So this video is going to be just basically a quick sketch. I didn't go into too many details because it's a sketch and if it's a sketch it means it should require less colors available and less time for the whole painting. I wasn't actually satisfied with my final sketch, so I decided to move that big croissant, the full croissant, a little bit higher. And that made me more satisfied, so I decided to leave it like that. Perfectionists are weird people, you know. So here I'm using Faber-Castell size 0.3, and you don't have to use the artist pen if you don't want to. I just feel like the pen adds that sketchy look to the work, and it helps to kind of elevate the croissants. And also in my summer essential doodle video, I gave a few tips on how to use an artist pen and watercolors. And if you haven't watched it, make sure you watch it and you know how to use those. I also used an eraser to get rid of unnecessary pencil lines and to kind of clean up the sketch. So I started my painting with just using a very diluted ochre. When it comes to painting croissants, you don't have to have lots of colors actually, and to make them look realistic. My approach is to work with tones rather than adding many different colors to make them, pop on the paper and to create that volume and shape. And create them like a real looking croissants. I work on 2 croissants at a time because I don't want them to completely dry out before I apply another layer of more saturated ochre. And depending on your paper, brushes, paints, and how much water you use, you might be able to work on all the croissants all at once, but I prefer to be less hectic and apply all the right tones and work on the smaller areas and kind of enjoy the process rather than rush and be afraid that one croissant is going to get dried and then I'll be like, oh I have to start all over again, or I will not get watercolory look that I wanted to achieve at the beginning. After I applied the initial tone, I used a little bit more saturated ochre, as I already mentioned before, and now the croissants look more or less real. So here I'm adding more shades for the volume to create the kind of light that comes from the top of the croissants. And I had a reference, but I ended up twisting everything and eventually not even looking at the reference itself, but I was playing with tones and shades. I will have a link in the description below the video if you want to check it out, but honestly I started kind of using the reference and then I was like, yeah, I'll just play around with the colors. Here I'm adding already a little bit of ochre and Indian yellow. As you see, the color changed a little bit to add that baked goody look to the pastries. As you can see, I like to wipe dry my brush and wash off a bit of the color I have applied to make a smoother transition between the paints. And it makes that, the paint, the actual paint, look a little bit softer without any rough edges. Initially, I was not honestly planning to post this video. I recorded just to, for myself, and just wanted to see how it looks like if I do a quick sketch and not a detailed painting. And then I ended up realizing that it might be helpful for some people who are fans of croissants, as I am. I'm not a fan of eating them. Like, I can eat them, but I never crave them, but I love to paint croissants, and I'm pretty sure there are some folks out there who are also super fascinated by croissants and would love to know how to paint those. So that's the reason why I decided to post this video, and hopefully you guys find it very helpful and educational, and you'll paint your cool croissants, hand them at home, and be so proud that you did it. And now I'm using burnt umber and Indian yellow to create the shades that come from the croissants, like layers, and make that depth that visually creates volume of an object that we are painting. And I also add some shades on the croissant itself to make the pastry pop on the paper. Since it's a sketch, I didn't go into too many details as I did when I posted my fresh and crispy croissant video. And the goal of this video was to just show you guys how to use a few colors and a number of tones to paint a realistic looking croissants. So now to finish up the croissants, I mixed the ochre, Indian yellow, permanent red light, and burnt umber to highlight more details on the croissants and add more shades and do some touch-ups for the final finish. I mean, honestly, when it comes to watercolors, you can just keep adding more layers as you go, and more colors as you go. But as I mentioned before in my previous videos, like, you just gotta stop. Like, you cannot just keep adding, otherwise you will ruin the wonders of the watercolors, because they should be airy and light. And if you continue adding more colors, especially if they're super saturated, you will just ruin the painting, and it's not gonna look as the watercolors, but as oil, or for example, or acrylic paints. I mean, they will have some differences, but you know what I mean. And please keep in mind, when I mentioned that I mixed 4 colors, I barely used the red color. I just wanted to add that a little bit of a reddish look for the pastry to kind of make it look as if it just came right out of the oven. right here, you can see that I'm adding a little bit more yellow, I'm sorry, not yellow, red to the mixture, to create a better, like a sharper transitions. So here is red and the burnt umber, and again, you can just play with colors, and you just see, if you're painting from a reference, you look at the reference and see what colors stand out. Like you see more yellow, you see more orange. I mean, I would not advise to dump the whole croissant with the orange color. It would look ruined from the beginning. The good rule of thumb is to start very like light and airy, just to use very diluted and very transparent colors, so that way you will see where you can add and kind of perfect the look of an object that you are painting. So here are just more touch-ups, a little bit more permanent red light color in here to add that fried look. Again, as I mentioned before, if you're painting from a reference, just look at the colors and try to study those colors, and then eventually, like the more you practice, the better you'll be able to come up with the color combination and the color mixture. It just takes a lot of practice and a lot of patience because if you were just born with the skills required to paint those super cool paintings like Da Vinci or Claude Monet or other great artists, you just take your time, enjoy the process, and watch the videos that I post on my channel, and I will surely post more educational ones where I will explain the process and how to paint one or another thing. So as you can see here, we just used 4 watercolor paints to create the real looking croissants, even though it's a sketch, which means it requires less time and less resources. But anyways, we came up with a super nice picture that can be easily used as your wallpaper, or you can turn it into a card for a friend's birthday, or for somebody who's a croissant fan. They will surely like that. So yeah, I hope you really enjoyed the video and you found it very interesting. Please click that like button and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next week with the new cool videos. Thank you guys.